Welcome to the Gooners podcast, season 7, episode 47. It's an all or nothing special, and we almost have all of us here, but we don't have Owen, so essentially we have nothing. Welcome to the Gooners pod.
Once upon a time, way back when there were only 9,000 Arsenal podcasts, 5 young men from various backgrounds, an Irish kid with a horrible haircut, a young Jewish nerd who hadn't discovered food yet, a child from Hemel Hempstead who didn't want to be English no more, a handsome advertising magnate with impeccable judgment, and a young Mexican AC Milan fan hatched a plan to take over the world of Arsenal podcasts. But then these boys became men. Jared, Mikey, Ewan, Magic, and Andy. And the rest, my friends, is history. And now, all these years later, you tune in every so often to hear their incredible takes, their football knowledge, and their sensual advice. But now, it's gone too far. You, our fans, are at long last witness to season...
7.
Welcome to the Gooners pod.
The fuck is he adding stuff to the end of that for?
I just decided to play that. I don't know.
Jesus Christ. Jared, hello. Welcome to the Gooners pod. How do we boot him out of the pod? I add in soundboards. He texts me on the side saying, stop doing that. It ruins my flow. And
It ruins my flow.
And then he adds in these stupid videos.
I like that he adds on to the end, but still keeps the photo of you that's taken in like 14p. That's like a camera from 1880.
Yeah. Yeah. The three things I like about that is the length, number one. Second is that he didn't even bother to find unwatermarked images. And then 3, he just took the last 10 photos from his photo reel and put them into the... And I respect it because
it's on my list to sprinkle in a little bit more of the 3 of you guys, but I need more pictures because otherwise you're going to end up with that picture of you getting your U.S. citizenship and the one of you with your girls' coaching team, because I could put those in there if you want.
No, don't put
it's
those.
on brand.
I mean, you can put the citizenship in there. I don't care about that.
You were like twice as large as you are now, but
That's true. But hey,
did you pork up specifically because you thought that's what they would want to see from the new Americans?
I assume that they would not take me if I wasn't porky.
How do you go upon that citizenship?
What do you mean?
Off air.
Yeah. Mike's actually asking for advice.
So Mike, you need to have
was that for a friend?
Yeah, you need to have a legitimate passport that wasn't drawn in crayon before you.
It's etched in the sand when I pass by.
Well,
also with a 14p.
Did you drop it over the wall?
The weekend is here. And we may not even get to the topic tonight, which is all or nothing, I think. If you haven't watched it, then you probably have no idea why I'm in Pepe's house. But this pod is essentially the Pepe's house of Arsenal podcasts.
That's a good point.
So it's been a fun week. Mikey's going to lead us through all or nothing because really that's what we're here. Now, we've all watched the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all right?
Yeah,
Jared, is your marriage still intact after the shenanigans I pulled on you yesterday?
Still good.
She
Barely.
forgave you? She forgave you, or you lied to her?
No. I just said, you know how Mike is. And she was like, oh, I get it.
The fact that she knows how I am.
All of our wives know you well enough to know, like, oh, yeah, okay, we get it.
Yeah, if something bad happens in our lives, it's Mike's fault. That's pretty much
I can go with that.
Yeah.
We're going to get the show on the road, gentlemen. So, yeah, live chat, like Mikey suggested, we are going to be reviewing 4, 5, and 6 on All or Nothing. So if you do not want spoilers, now's the time to exit. you want a sneak peek,
Or if you want a
we will
more
be-
entertaining version of watching it than
there
actually
you go.
watching it.
Our production
this
value
was
is greater
wait.
than Amazon.
I thought this was a watch along where we were going to watch the episodes and people were going to watch us watch the episodes.
You haven't
They
watched
have
it.
that. They have that apparently. Like you can do a watch party on Amazon, and
Yes.
I thought about trying to figure it out, and then I was like, eh.
And then you realize none of your co-hosts actually watch it with you because we all
Well,
think that's a horrible
You
idea.
know, how do we loop that into the show? Is it going to be fun? Like, are we all going to? I mean, like, how? It's bad enough that people do. I mean, we started the watch along, Andy and I, and now it's everyone just grabbed that from us.
It's overdone. We've done it.
And it's overdone because
that was stolen.
the only way it would be fun is if it were like that. What was it called on Sky Sports, where they had like the two opposing fans in the broadcast booth watching the game together, and you see the game on like the main screen, and then you see the two of them like pushing each other and bantering each other to hell. It's the greatest show, and I never can find it anymore. But like, when a goal is scored, one of them just goes absolutely crazy and starts ripping his shirt off and like taunting the other guy because they're physically together. There's like a guy in an Arsenal shirt and a guy in a United shirt, and they're killing each other. That's the way to do a watch along. Anything short of that, just seeing Lee Judge's, head bulge in the middle of a show is while you can't tell what's actually happening on the screen, isn't as fun, I don't think. But this will be fun.
I went to watch Arsenal Spurs at a random pub, and it was like me, a friend that knows nothing about football, and there was two Spurs fans there, and there was like nobody else. And I'm like low key enjoying the game. It finished 2-2. I can't remember what year it was, but every time they scored, the two Spurs guys behind me were like obnoxious, over the top, like fuck yeah, fuck Arsenal. And I'm like, no, they're just trying to fuck with you, Mike. Don't even look backwards. Like, don't even look backwards. I enjoyed my two beers and the football, and I left. But I could totally they were just laying it on there
because immigration officers were following you at the time, and that would have been probable cause for them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay,
one time I say don't fight back against Spurs fans is when you're being approved for something very special.
I appreciate that, Mikey. All or Nothing, episode 4. Mourinho gives his team talk. Harry Kane and Son. Oh, wrong. All or Nothing. All right, so 4, 5, and 6.
You wrote a bit.
Yeah, heavily rotated around the Alba situation leading up to the January transfer window. So we're gonna start off with the Alba conversation. And Jared, there's a few comments that got recorded, and it was essentially the conversation of how they were going to get out of terminating Aubameyang's contract, and they were going to talk to a lawyer, and necessarily sound like they needed proof, so to say, right? So enter the voiceover Arteta saying that he has a whole file. Like he goes, I have filed, I got dates, I got stamps, I have a case against them to move and make this decision. So part of me, the enemy, because as a fan from the outside, we're just being told initially he got kicked out of the team because he was late. But that little conversation that Arteta had made it seem like there's a ton of shit that's been accumulating. So would you, as a fan watching the documentary, were you interested in hopefully deep diving a little bit more than just, Alba was late?
It would have been interesting to hear what some of those other things were, if not just a laundry list of every time he's been late. But I think it speaks to more him having a little bit more of a me first attitude than Arteta tends to want in the players from what we've seen. And it did give you an idea that Arteta kind of saw this coming a little bit with his attitude, that he was already keeping that sort of dossier of all the violations that he had. He treats it as if, it's a business and he's running an HR department. If you want to get rid of somebody, you've got to have all your ducks in a row and all your documentation that support that move. And then I still think a little bit we got bailed out in the end by Barcelona with them being willing to take him on. And that was reflected in the phone call with Edu when they said, congratulations, it's a good deal for you to Edu. And my thought was, it really is. And I was surprised that it went down the way it did. But, I think we got pretty fortunate, and especially it's easy to look back now and see we're in a much better place to say that. But yeah, we got pretty lucky, and I did think it was interesting, but it shows you how detail oriented Arteta is, and how he's a little bit over the top and a stickler for kind of everything, which isn't necessarily a bad thing when you're running a football club, but it just gives you a little insight, I think, into his personality and how attention to detail is definitely at the forefront of what seems like everything he's involved in.
Yeah, he's intense to say the very least. But the other thing that I've noticed in the documentary is that, you know, Aubameyang didn't have an opportunity to talk and to, I'm going to say, defend himself much. We didn't get his perspective, but with the documentary, it almost seems like he came off worse. So in my opinion, if there was any fan that might have given him the benefit of the doubt, he's on film of saying, for example, when I think there was another French footballer, because they were speaking the language, suggested like, hey, when are you coming back? He goes, I don't know. And then he followed up with, they asked me if I wanted to talk again. He just said no again. So signs, Mikey, in my opinion, that the club, you know, had the conversation, kicked them out of the team, stripped them from the captaincy, wanted to progress the relationship, but it seems like at that point in time, Alba just was out of it.
Yeah, this whole thing was a no-win situation in the short term for anybody. And you know, while we don't know how much maybe Auba content was cut out to fit the narrative, and there's a clear narrative here. I mean, I'm not, you know, I was always pro Arteta, and Auba needs to go, you know, from November, December of last year when he pretty much fell out of favor. I wasn't on the fence on that one. And you could look at this as being, well, this fulfills and supports the narrative that, and the thought process that he was just downing tools at Arsenal. Not that he was a washed up player, but that he just wasn't going to contribute to this team anymore. But I think the way that they did it was almost too one-sided. I mean, it's just become so clear what the intent is here. And this entire thing is essentially a Arteta propaganda. It's effective Arteta propaganda, and it's working on a lot of people who I think were on the fence or possibly even negative. It's enhancing my respect and appreciation for him, but it's hard not just to point out the fact that this is just the Arteta show. This, you know, every comment is about Arteta. Everything works out in Arteta's favor, or at least shows that he's, you know, working towards something. And, you know, it's the only frustrating thing about it is that there's really only one side to this, and that just tells you how much creative control Arsenal must have had over it.
Yeah, which we kind of knew that going in. They would have a lot of the editorial discretion. But if you watch the previous seasons, the City one was very Pep-centric. The Tottenham one was very Mourinho-centric. So I think that's just kind of
not necessarily in a great way, though.
A little bit. What's
the
that?
Mourinho-centric part wasn't necessarily to support him. It was, I mean, it almost was like taking the piss out of him by letting him do his own work.
Yeah, but just in general, the manager is kind of the central focus of these shows, and it just kind of expands out from there, it seems like, from the others we've.
Yeah, but Auba did do a massive, I mean, the petulant move of just taking himself to Barcelona, I think actually was the greatest thing he's ever done for this football club outside of the FA Cup run.
There were a few moments throughout, like, edits, and there was one where Arteta was on the training ground and he like gets really animated about how for the last 10 years this shit's been pulled and how it was like unacceptable. And I forget the quote, but that like resonated with me because I was like, oh shit, like as much as this, and I agree with everyone, it's very heavy in Arteta's favor. But numerous times on different levels, they do talk about like the culture shift and things having to change. And I was like, that right there is the reason why. And obviously something happened right before that got him super animated and pissed off. And I wish we would have seen that. But I also think out of respect to Aubameyang, they're not going to shit on a player, right? So I understand why. I mean, I think the dicey that we've ever seen, and I don't know if Mike, you saw the Spurs one, was when Mourinho's in his office with I forget which player. I think
Dele Alli, I think.
Yeah, someone comes and just calls him out on his shit, and he's like, "I don't give a shit who you are." And it's like, "I'll just the board," and then like a day or two later, he forces his move. Right? That was awesome, and like. it humanizes a lot of the Spurs players that we don't want to like. They don't want to demonize Aubameyang and tarnish his career. I'm going to go back to fucking 4 years ago when Drew Thompson was telling us in the TGT WhatsApp group, this guy will destroy his
You're
career.
finally giving him credit for that.
And he was saying it from the moment we were rumored with him. And petulance.
He said he will do great things, but ultimately it's going to be a disaster, and it's an unnecessary signing after Lacazette. That's what he was.
He called it exactly how it was. Even the captaincy. Yeah,
he did. And the fact that, the dude went to Barcelona and then they just outly lied to Edu on the phone, like, oh, his dad lives there. Fuck off. So, at the end of the day, like,
Disneyland.
I thought it was really interesting. I wanted a little bit more behind the scenes, but there were a couple other quotes in there where I think it was Garlic who said, this is the start of our rebuild, right? This is the process starting. And that was kind of in the middle of this whole Aubameyang thing. And that he was kind of alluding to the fact that, like, we can't go into January signing 11 players. That's not how it's done. That's a failure. So I respect that. There was two people in the episode. I wanted to grab a screenshot. The first guy was sitting down talking to one of the players, and he was like a director, a non-executive director. And I was like,
Tim Lewis.
Oh yeah, I'm like, I want to punch this guy in the face. He was so annoying.
Okay, first of all,
I don't hate Tim Lewis now.
I've met Tim Lewis. I like Tim Lewis. Tim Lewis has done a lot of good for the football club.
For the show, it was just like there was no reason for that to be in there.
We don't get very far having you threaten the basically Kroenke's right hand man by punching him in the face. That's not.
Listen,
gonna help.
Andy likes him, just doesn't like his face. Completely different. It's
Yeah,
okay to
no,
not
no.
like
Okay, I can.
Having him on the show was just another like one of those like, hey, this will editorial look really good for like pumping up the narrative. And I'm like, this. So maybe it's not Lewis's fault because he was just there and they probably told him like, hey, we need you to go and say these things, right? And then there was like some weird cat in the hallway with white hair. Did you guys see that with really large feet? I'll go back and screenshot it. And we'll
Gunnersaurus? Is it old Gunnersaurus?
No, it was like
Gunnersaurus's grandpa.
I feel like he's gonna he's gonna Photoshop something now.
Well, I'll find it. I was just like, this is bizarre.
This is how you're watching the documentary. You're like, wait, there's an old guy with big feet. I don't like this at all.
Basically,
old guy, big feet.
I wasn't looking at the size of anyone's feet on these 3 episodes.
I am gonna work on
absolutely. But.
I'm going to work on finding this right now, and I'm going to pull up a screenshot of it.
If his white hair was curly, you might be talking about retired Ronald McDonald. Is my best guess at this point. That's with the big feet. That's what you're describing right now. So, okay, so we've covered a good part of it, but as far as Alba's reputation, I know that it's going to be very one-sided for Arsenal with how the final cut's going to be. But Jared, if there were some fans out there that loved themselves some Aubameyang and were maybe loved Aubameyang more so because they didn't like the manager so much, but even in light for that fact, taking off to Barcelona without permission, refusing to talk, it seems one-sided. But I'm trying to figure out what could possibly Aubameyang have done to come out looking good in this situation for the whole club to treat him that way, and not only for him to take off to the extent where Edu had to reach out to his agent again and say, we need to figure this out. Like they effed off, zero communication when he was supposed to be training. Like if you're an Arsenal fan sitting there, you have to feel like he disrespected the club. Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand why people sort of take Alba's side in this. It was very much set up. It kind of was the case, but also in the public sphere that it's Mikel versus Aubameyang. And when there's already a lot of people at the time who weren't huge on Arteta, it sort of strengthens their, love for Aubameyang and that side of the argument. And he scored almost 100 goals for the club. He absolutely won us an FA Cup. So there's a lot to be a fan of. I'm not hating on people at all for supporting him. He was great for a time at Arsenal. It just came to an end in a way you wouldn't want. As far as him just popping up in Barcelona unannounced to the team and missing training and things like that, he probably looked at it as the way he could force his hand and get a move there that he wanted. But I think it also highlights, a personality trait of exactly why we were in the situation we were in. He kind of has that attitude of what he wants for himself is paramount potentially over what the club wants for everyone. And it just kind of shown there. But, I don't fault people for supporting him leading up, because there's a lot of people that are huge Alba fans, and I don't hate on him for that at all. But, he certainly doesn't come out looking great. But as a player, you kind of know how these things play out. He's not the first person to be in a similar situation. And, sometimes you have to take a little bit of a PR hit, if you want to call it that. You have to do something people won't love in order to get where you want to go in the end. And that's exactly what he did. And honestly, it worked out good for both parties after it was all said and done, in my opinion, at least.
He pulled a Peter Odemwingie. I mean, when you think about it, he pulled like a trans channel, like continental Peter Odemwingie, which is hilarious. But I mean, I think, it's different with Ozil, because there are literally people who just followed Ozil everywhere. With Aubameyang, I think almost everybody that supported him through this entire thing was doing it specifically as an example of why they thought Arteta was not capable. I mean, the two were just intrinsically linked there, because, most of the people, and there are a few that I could name if I wanted to right now on Facebook and on Twitter, who just, they kept using that and using it and talking about, when Aubameyang started banging in goals for Barcelona at first. And by the way, he didn't keep it up. But when he started banging in goals at first, it was like, Arteta couldn't get the best out of him. Well, you can't get the best out of someone who just isn't going to perform. That's what down tools means. You can't just force someone, hey, go pick up those tools. The guy wasn't what he used to be because he didn't want to be it anymore. And you can't coax somebody out of that. You can't coach somebody out of that. You can't manage somebody out of that while maintaining your authority with the rest of the team, which is what the whole Casa de Pepe thing was about. And he's right, because while they're reforming the structure of the team, the age profile, the flexibility of positions, the giving everything for each other, team atmosphere, you cannot have even the hint of different rules for different people, whether it's your captain or not. And you have to be, if anything, maybe a little over the top with that, which I think probably did happen with Aubameyang. I mean, I don't think I think it's mostly just being late and not seeming to really have the leadership that you would have expected out of a captain. I doubt he did anything seriously wrong other than just repeated lateness, which is, I know someone who's always late for something. It isn't about not being able to be on time. It's about total disrespect. And
I think
that's
you nail on the head there.
Well,
and that's what it is
when you have to write, okay, so let's say Mike is late for a podcast and it's 5 times in a row. You could say a handful of times. When it gets to the point that you have to start actually documenting it onto a piece of paper, so when you go to the board who clearly didn't want Aubameyang, and then Arteta opens up and they go, oh shit, this isn't just a handful of times. There has been a lot that in my mind. I was like, holy shit, how big is this dossier that he
I want to see the dossier on Guendouzi, though. That's the one I want to see. I mean, imagine if this was a year earlier. The whole 4th, 5th, 6th episode would have been about Guendouzi. But
we will not badmouth Guendo.
Did you guys kind of get the vibe that
you love your curly-haired, big-footed, white-haired people?
Did you guys kind of get the vibe that they throw in every now and again some, hey, we're gonna shit on the fans, because there'll be a random interview or voiceover with Arteta and Aubameyang need to get along, the manager's at fault, I can't believe he's doing this, and then 3 seconds later it's Arteta being so there's gonna be shit hitting the fan, but I've got a huge folder of shit he's done wrong ready to take to the board, and I forget the PR guy's name, where he was hey, prepare yourself. This is not.
This is the Mark Canella show, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
This will tell you the only person that features on this show more than Mikel Arteta is Mark Canella.
Yeah, but when he preps Mark with hey, this story is going to be bad. And Mike, we've met Mark. He is very diligent with how he presents stories to the media and the press.
He's very well thought. I mean, you may not like how he is all the time, but he's protective of the team.
Right.
He's very well passionate.
Yeah. And I also thought it was interesting that Mikel kind of uses him as a confidant as they're walking around, and it doesn't seem they're on an island by themselves. Like everyone is part of this group. But anyway, so I'm still trying to find the weird white guy. Hold on.
The weird white guy. All right, good luck finding the weird white guy. I am staring at two of them right now.
I love, but what I found most interesting, I guess, and the part that we, maybe there was some reporting on this, but not necessarily that strong, was the gap between the board and Edu and Garlic and Arteta on having to reintegrate him back in the team. I mean, I think they were all under the impression they wouldn't be able to move him in January, and because of that, you couldn't just pay him, to not play, and then have a whole nother year on the contract as well. So, but I mean, Arteta was here, and they were there, and Arteta won that.
He did. He kind of got forced into it, but I thought that was interesting. They included that conversation where Edu, says to Vinay and Garlic that you have to understand the relationship downstairs is zero. So it wasn't a case of people making more of it than what was there in terms of there being a riff between Arteta and Alba. You heard it right from the horse's mouth. He said the relationship is absolutely zero. So, you kind of never really know exactly what's going on until you've got a camera in the room and they tell you exactly what was going on at the time. And, you can say Arteta came out the winner, but sort of like you alluded to earlier with you can't coach someone who's not willing to do it anymore. There was the clip of Arteta saying, when I look in his eyes and I can tell that there's a fracture there, I know at that point for me, there's no going back from it. And that's probably what won out in the end, and probably rightfully so as well.
It's funny that like Jared and Mike have mentioned Arteta coming out looking like the winner. And I sarcastically, I guess, keep on thinking to myself, just wait until the final 2 episodes, gentlemen. The shit's about to hit the fan. And I keep on thinking to myself, how are they going to post the fan reaction there? And I'm generally looking forward to that. So speaking about just public,
what if they just create this narrative that the top 5 is the Champions League and try to convince people that
I would love that.
Made it.
I would absolutely love
just
that.
Completely rewrite history in the documentary.
Well, I mean, speaking about rewriting history, I'm not going to say they rewrote history, but I'm going to say they pushed aside and or hid a little bit of history, because they, as much as these episodes revolved around Aubameyang and his exit and the bad relationship he had with the club and Arteta, what they didn't talk about was any links, any reason why they chose not to. There was a small clip of somebody saying that they weren't planning because of the big outlay of money that they already had during the summer. So the plan was that Aubameyang was going to be here for the whole season, but they never discussed we're going to lose Aubameyang, plus we're choosing not to bring anybody in. Now, maybe they tried to hint at that with the fact that, they were clicking down the clock, and they got the paperwork done like 10:59, a minute before it happened. So maybe that's their way of trying to emphasize that.
In those days before the deadline, we were all the buzz amongst us as fans was, are we going to overpay for Isak? Are we going to make a move for for another striker? Are we going to bring someone on loan? And when you juxtapose that now to, they really did not appear to think that they were going to be able to get rid of Aubameyang and his wages. Well, and frankly, they didn't get rid of his wages for last year. They got rid of his wages for this year. But so, I suppose bringing someone in on loan didn't have to depend on getting rid of Aubameyang necessarily, but it just seems like the focus was so much on that. And I've said all along that and Edu pretty much in his interviews down in Orlando, which I wasn't invited to, but all of my colleagues were. He pretty much said, we were ahead of the pace. We didn't expect to be where we were, and it was important for us to stay on the schedule so that we could, be in a bigger shopping mall over the summer, get what we really need to build a long-term situation, and not just get back in these situations where we're too crowded at a position because we made a short-term move. So they gambled, they lost by not adding to the team. Potentially they lost. I mean, who's to say we add and we still don't finish 5th, or we still finish 5th? But they didn't cover it that much, but I think that's just because of the level of involvement that this Aubameyang narrative had on it. It's just all consuming. Too much, I think. 2.5 episodes out of 8 was a lot.
I'm still naive enough to think that we could have pulled it off with a little bit more luck on the injury front. And I know that's being very, very optimistic, but I do believe Partey's injury was a big defining moment that kind of rocked the boat.
Yeah, I mean, for the year last year, games Partey started versus games he didn't, we averaged a full 1 point per game more in the games we had him versus the games we didn't. And he misses 8 or 9 games in the end. I mean, that right there is literally the difference between, you know, where we are now and making Champions League. So I don't think you're really out there at all to say the Partey injury was the catalyst for not making it, because I think that's the case too.
Yeah, and Dempsek is right. I mean, I'm sorry, they didn't the plan. They gambled by sticking to the plan in a sense, which
That's
is
a good point. Yeah,
you know, if you are like shockingly ahead of pace on you know, on some sort of long-term goal, you know, do you kind of veer off of your plan to just try to get that? And they really showed restraint in not doing that, which I think in the long run will help us. What I don't think people understand about last year was that there was always going to be a big targeted summer of recruitment, whether we had the extra 80 million pounds from Champions League or not. You know, making Champions League wasn't gonna cause us to spend 230 million over the summer instead of 150. It was still going to be 150 whether we had that money or not, because that was the plan. That was how they forecasted. So, and that's what a lot of the salary cutting and taking bitter pills on transfer fees has been about, was creating the opportunity to have 2 summers in a row where we lead maybe the world, if not just the Premier League, in spending as of now. So, you know, but I think that's why they didn't cover it so much, is because they were just really never, other than Vlahovic, which was over within 3 days at the beginning of January, despite what people like to think. You know, I don't really think they were seriously in for anybody.
So, all right. So we've kind of, Andy spoke about not only just the transfer window and Aubameyang, but the perception that the fans have versus reality. And one that really struck me was the perception of Arteta from a lot of fans was somebody that instructed the team potentially to sit back after scoring goals. And I know the documentary is slightly aired towards Arsenal's favor here. I don't think Arteta reamed everybody every single game when they played like shit for the camera. So I'm gonna safely say I assume that's how Arteta is. We you know, at the beginning of, I think it was episode 5, where he just started giving everybody shit, saying that they had 5 minutes to do the standards. I think he dug out Balogun, you know, by name. I think it was around the Everton Forest game. I think he also pointed out that Tavares, when he got hooked. So, are you at all surprised about Arteta's like level of intensity at this rate? Because he's very calm and composed for the most part. Like, I could only think of him losing his shit once doing a press conference where, I forgot the game, maybe the Martinelli double yellow, but he was proper pissed off, and, you know, often just continuing on his theory about not being Casa de Pepe and, you know, having standards at the club. Did that catch you off guard at all, Andy, or for the most part, did you think he was going to be a little bit more mellow?
No, it didn't catch me off. I think Arteta, I think he's very obviously he's like a tactical masterclass. So for me, I think he only gets angry at the team when they fail to put in the tactics that he's put on the board for them. And like when they go into the Liverpool game, I think they kind of knew, like, hey, we don't have really a chance, so I just want you to go out and have a good night, you know? And he came off and said, listen, we were the best team between the 2 boxes, and that's where we failed. And I think he probably would have gotten angrier if they had failed in other places. I think it was the Forest match where he came out and he was fucking furious, and he was going into like, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. So I think from my perspective, Arteta seems like that manager who gets angry when the team don't put in the effort with the tactics that he's kind of said, like, here's what we're going to do for the match. If we go in and we lose, we play well, he sees growth, I don't think he's going to get angry. So, and any good manager shouldn't, right? If you watch the Man City All or Nothing, Pep was the same way. You know, he would walk away from matches being like, we did everything that we planned on doing, and we still lost. So what can I do? I can't bitch the team out. Yeah. So
And I think you're spot on, especially with the Forest game, because the piece they show right before that is when he had been out for COVID and he comes back and says, I watched the video of training. And he said, and there's a handful of guys that if I was there, you would have been gone immediately because nobody goes for the second ball. There's no
That was
worry about
before the
losing
game,
it.
right? That
Yeah,
was
and then
very,
immediately you go to the FA Cup game, you don't do those specific things he just told you about, and you lose 1-0. And he even says, when you make those mistakes in a game that you allow in practice, it's a goal. And then, immediately it turns around and it comes to fruition in a really negative way. But I think it speaks to Andy's point that, of course, he's going to be mad about that. It's literally the primary focus of what he just said to you. You turn around, do the exact opposite, and get a bad result. I mean, what do you expect? Of course, he's going to be upset about that.
Yeah, I was fairly impressed with the whole way he managed. Like I said, I thought he was going to be a little bit more calm about the whole situation, but I mean, he's very vocal. He loses his voice a whole lot, but throughout all this screaming, he does say, "I shouldn't have to scream at you guys like this. You guys are better than this." So he does try to motivate them as much as he can. Mike, were you going to cut in?
No, I was just going to agree with everyone.
Awesome. You'll
Jared just was shocked that I said no, I wasn't going to cut.
Mike's just happy
just because I made a noise doesn't mean I had anything to say.
Mike's just happy to be here.
Yeah.
With Gatorade, looking for why Andy looks for the curly-haired man with big shoes.
I tried looking twice, and then I was like, I'm not adding anything to this, but I am going to find him. I'm going to use a set of skills that I have. I don't know if it's in the running order.
I will find you.
I don't know if it's in the running order, Mike. But while I was scrolling through, twice I kind of came upon the Lacazette-Ramsdale moment. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but Ramsdale was sitting in his cubicle just like upset and pissed off. And
after the pool game, right?
Yeah, and Lacazette came over and said something to him, which was cool. But then like slowly circles back with like, dude, are you okay? And that to me, like kind of, I gained a lot of respect for Lacazette because he was given the captain's armband. And for a long time, I'm like, are we just giving him the armband so he doesn't feel really shitty that we've just sold his best friend? But it was kind of neat to see him like acknowledge like, yo, this guy's in a space right now where I should probably go back and just adjust, like check on him. And I was like, that was really nice. And like they're teammates, right? They should be doing that. But there were 3 or 4 other players that walked past Ramsdale without saying anything, and I was like,
they cut it off before the penetration. But yeah, I was laughing at this guy.
Well played, Daniel.
We don't have many listeners, but they know us really well. I love them.
Yeah, don't triple captain the player who's going to score all the goals against you.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. Yeah, that one came after the Liverpool loss, where it was a well fought for a solid 50, 60 minutes, and I mean we dominated Liverpool for a big part of that game, but. Yeah, unfortunately, the goal, I think, with Jota, because who else scores against us from that Liverpool team, it was a near post goal. And so anytime you get beat in the near post as a goalie, I'm sure you're feeling kind of dummy. And so, yeah, he handled that loss really hard. And that's something that they kind of opened up to, like you viewing, like, Granit Xhaka's wife spoke about it. We saw with how Aaron Ramsdale acted. And, I know it's really easy to have the public perspective of they don't fucking care. They're going to get paid and they're going to leave. But I do truly believe that the locker room is slowly gaining more and more of those players with the type of mentality that if they lose, they're going to be pissed. And as a fan, I mean, that's kind of what you want to see, right? You want to see, you want to know that they're hurting like you're hurting after a bad loss.
Yeah. And I think Ramsdale came across really good in that regard too. And I think it was in the first 3 episodes, actually, when they were talking about him. And it was I think a 3-0 game that they gave up a late goal. And he was just furious over it, but not just losing the clean sheet, but
yeah, I forget who it was. It was like a non-super impressive win, but it was a clean sheet until it was lost. Maybe Brighton, I can't remember.
Yeah, but he made the point. He said, in a tie game or a 1-0 game, it actually matters. You can't turn off for a second, or you're going to have a negative result somewhere down the line. And I thought that spoke a lot to his character, and probably a reason he's so well liked by the management is that's a winning attitude, that you're not just looking at this moment for what it is, that you're looking at what it means in the broader sense for the team, and understanding that you can't let off at any point until you hear the final whistle. And that's something I think we've probably lacked in the past from some of our previous players that they're kind of getting away from. But I thought that moment for Ramsdale made him look pretty good.
So
That's what you want out of your goalie, though, right? I mean, not
Oh, for
saying
sure.
'cause we didn't see enough out of the team, but like I played keeper, and I remember just recently we were playing in an adult men's league, and there was like 5 minutes left in the game. We were playing a team that had like Hawaiian shirts on, and one of the guys was like Ron Jeremy, and like they had like one or two good players, but they were just there for a good time. With like 5 minutes left, I was like, "Yo, like we're up 3-0. I want the shutout." And obviously the team know what that means because it's that next goal. But my team started taking shots on me. So like I would let in a goal in the last couple of minutes. So we did get the shutout just for jokes. But it's like if you're a goalie and a defender, like that is then the next, like aside from the win, that's your next big thing, right? As a striker, it's hey, we win 1-0. I scored that goal. I got the assist. That's a big thing. And then you also got to remember like Ramsdale, White, all these players, they have bonuses tied into that. So when you're 2-3 minutes left in the game and you have a $30,000 shutout bonus, maybe you get 10 of them in a season. Like that's a lot of money. Like you'd be pissed off as well. And I hate to bring the financial part of it in, but it's true. Like,
can you imagine like Lacazette comes over and it's like, no man, really, what's going on? He's like, I just lost 30,000.
yeah, and it could be that. Who knows?
They edit that out.
That would have been awful. But
if they would have edited that in, that would have been great.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, Sebi can like put that in a deep fake.
Mike's gonna read deep fake the whole All or Nothing series.
The dressing room has to be able to not just be upset after a loss. Being upset after a loss doesn't help you do better the next time. It's like be angry and go through these stages. Then like have a small group or a group discussion and a decision about how to improve upon that. And on the next day's training, these guys are like, okay, well now we kind of know what we need to do. And that's where you kind of miss a little bit of the veteran leadership, because those Barcelona teams, not the financially cheating ones, but like the players in the glory days, they didn't need a coach. They didn't need Pep. They needed him, but they didn't need him like all the time because they would have their own self-regulation of that. And I think you're starting to see some of that, although in some cases, and I don't know if this, I didn't see this on the thing, but the Xhaka Saka thing, which Andy and I know that we had a kind of a strong opinion from our friend Tom Rosenhammer in our kind of Denver, Washington chat about what that was all about, whether that was all good natured, whether it was a little passive aggressive, or whether it was flat out blame game. But like, not to take over, Mike, but what did you think of that little quote unquote confrontation with Smiles?
With I think Xhaka was being genuine and saying this is the reason I was there and this is the reason I had to do it, and Saka laughed it off like you're out of your goddamn mind. So I think Saka.
So that's a disconnect then. That's saying that they weren't on the same page.
Yeah, that's how I viewed it, to be honest, because like Saka kept on saying like, no, I'm covering because you waka waka, and Saka's like, you're crazy, bro. I had to do this, and Saka was like, dude, that was gonna happen regardless because I was on this side of the field, and I think that only annoyed Xhaka more in a way. Like I think he started off, somebody questioned him. I forgot who questioned him. Somebody would, it was like Lacazette and somebody else in the training room. They questioned him, and he was justifying his position, not the fact that he threw a flying kick trying to catch the ball, which I still feel hard done by. By the way, I'm gonna throw that in there where I do kind of feel like, well, because I feel like other players would get the benefit of the doubt because Xhaka never laid eyes on, what is it, Jota? Or I forgot who. He never laid eyes on him. His eyesight was always the ball. He swung, he missed, he made contact. Now there was contact. I understand. I understand what you're saying, but again, and this is the horrible thing with how inconsistent the referees are, is based on other decisions. It lends me if that was somebody else, that might have not happened. Similar to the yellow card that he received the first game of the season. I could say that, and during that game, my friend, my co-host Kelly, he pointed out that every time somebody dived, Xhaka was looking at the ref like, "How about that one?" Are you going to get a card for that one? So he was in the ref's ear all game after that. But as a fan, it's really difficult to see those type of inconsistencies. So
I think there's truth to both players, right? Like, for me, that was all banter. I think there was passive aggressive banter, but we talked about it in the group because I remember in one of our groups, like someone was like, I can't believe we're blaming Saka for the goal against Liverpool. And I was Lordos, and he wasn't saying it in a negative way, but I was like, but Lordos, if you go back and you watch the play, because Saka decided to just kick the ball up and it takes an unfortunate bounce on a Liverpool player, it like our entire team were moving forward. So when the bounce came behind the defenders, everyone was pushed up. It was like a 2-second bad luck where the Liverpool players were onside. They got to go shoot and score a goal. So I do agree with Xhaka where he's like, hey, if you guys are all up, the only person back is me. Like, I'm fucked either way.
Mm-hmm.
And what am I supposed to do? I'm not a defender, so I'm going to foul him.
And he was correct that if he doesn't foul him there, he's clean through and scores and makes it 1-0, and we don't get anything out of the game.
More than likely.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not a justification. That wasn't in his head that like, hey, I'm going to do this so we can save a 1-1 draw.
Right. And
but
someone yelled back to him
correct.
like, maybe you should have a cooler head. And again, that's true, right? You like, I don't know if you guys have siblings, but like there are arguments you have with your families that you say shit and you mean it and it's mean, but it's like, hey, this is kind of how you work it out. I don't think they were arguing. I think it was all smiles and just banter. But, you know, again, the editing was funny. But there's going to be people with an agenda against Xhaka who are like, oh, it's just him being a fucking asshole and Saka's like perfect and we don't like, he can't do anything wrong. Well, he can. He can.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting. It was one of the only like passages where like it wasn't almost understood how you were supposed to feel about it. Like it left the ability to interpret it in two different ways as opposed to everything else, which is like, you know, here's the narrative and here's what we're showing you, you know, to fit that narrative. So, I mean, you know, that might be the one, you know, mistake that Arsenal apps accidentally let slip through the cracks from their perfectly sculpted, you know, PR move there. But
no, I think that was in there on purpose.
So on the PR move, as you referring to it, Mike, like did the segment that they had specifically on Xhaka, his home life, how his wife spoke about, you know, how he handles the losses, did that do anything for you? Because I know you've been on you're not the biggest Xhaka fan, put it that way. So
no,
you're not abusive and you don't hate him, but you're not you would be, I'm gonna say,
you don't know how I am in my private life, but
there's a rodent Twitter account out there that's just bad mouthing Xhaka every day.
Oh, it's awful. No, I mean, at this point, it's almost like I don't have any room to just keep going back and forth on him anymore. I mean, is he good enough? Could he be improved upon on the pitch? I tend to stay out of that discussion. I think he's certainly very, very good at times, and at other times not good enough. That you can say that about most people. You know, as far as his personality is concerned, I don't know his background. Given where he's from, I guess the background has some level of conflict and historical issues where, you know, it could shape a person's personality. But he seems very, very defensive a lot of the time, you know, and so, you know, I'm open to anything that humanizes him because I think that's something that's important to have for any footballer, is to humanize the person, even if it's in the, you know, the most delicately placed setting of a, you know, person's home with their adorable kids and the wife and the, you know, and how crazy is it that we saw Arteta's barbecue and not Edu's, but you know, there.
Edu was in the background.
I'm just almost completely neutral about Xhaka at this point.
You've got to be
the next thing he does will sway me one way or the other. On, you know, whereas at one point I was very, very negative about him personally and did not want him associated with my club anymore. I'm now just kind of numb and neutral, and like if he can help the club, then so be it, because he's not going anywhere.
I have him in my fantasy team, so I'm rooting for him.
Maybe that would pull me off the fence. I need to start a fantasy team, triple captain him every game, and I'll probably end up hating him then.
I don't think for a second that you can become a Premier League player if you don't take your work home with you. There's not one player that plays on a top team that doesn't go home angry when they lose. We all know Ben White doesn't care for football, doesn't watch it, doesn't study it, but you can see how angry and upset he is after the matches when he's sitting in the locker room, and he's just like perplexed. You can hate Jacques, you can love him, but you can't question his I guess I'm having a brain fart.
Dedication is
work. His dedication and passion. Yeah, you can't, right? Like, he's our player. You got to support him when he has our shirt on. He is stupid, but he does bring it home with him. All these players do.
Stupid, is it?
He's our stupid player.
I've never called him. I've never said he was stupid.
He's the Tim Lewis of players.
Oh, he's
the guy in the background with the big feet.
I mean, as far as what Mike said, there's a couple things. One, I just think in general, he's a more serious human being than a lot of the other people are. Like the joking around of Ramsdale, Saka, those guys, which there's nothing wrong with. That's just not him. I don't get the impression that he likes to joke around with the guys as much as everybody else. And then also for the past 4 years, probably every random person that's walked up to him has had something negative to say. And I think after that continually happening everywhere you go at all times, you're naturally going to be more defensive and not wanting to interact with those people, and are going to seem a little bit more standoffish. And when you're already kind of that way by nature, it kind of looks a lot worse than it is in a lot of cases, probably.
Yeah, he's not particularly media fan friendly trained, but then also when you see people that come off as being too much of that, you don't feel close to them and invested in them either. So, it's like Kobe Bryant with, I mean, there's these guys who you're just like, this isn't really who they are. And you feel like Ramsdale, you just know who he is. When he's upset, when he's happy, when he's joking, you feel like he's one of your mates. With Xhaka, you feel like he's just a guy who will always look at you as the fan or critique or whatever. He'll look at you, critic. He'll look at you as the opponent. And that's really the thing I feel about Xhaka, is that he sees fans as opponents. And I'm not.
But he's correct about that about 95% of the time in reality.
I'm not ignoring how that became the case, and I'm not blaming him for necessarily having that feeling. I think he loves the football club. I don't think he loves the fans. I think he feels truly an oppositional relationship with Arsenal fans, which generalizes the loud minority of abusive people and kind of puts it on everybody. I feel like that's what he did that day against Palace. Was he lifted the finger towards 10 million to 20 million people when 50 to 500 were to blame. And that's those have been my issues with him. But again, I'd love to see the story end up nicely. I'd love to see him get a winner's medal for a Premier League, and then maybe move on to go back to Germany or an Italian team or something, and we continue to improve and reload, because he's getting up there, in his late 20s anyway, and that's kind of something that you'd think the team would want to do in the next year or two anyway. So, that's my thoughts on it.
He's 28 until he's 29.
28, and that's just way too old.
Yeah, that's
for me.
way too old, says the FIFA player. The funny part, the kind of funny part is, describing his relationship with fans wasn't he the one that kind of suggested that fans should be allowed to see the training for the fans to be able to see the players on a human being level, not just the player?
I think, but that wasn't a magnanimous gesture. That was like, that was more of like us versus them-ish, in my opinion, to say, what, they make these assumptions about us. Show them how hard we work. To like again, he's treating the fans kind of like a congruous single set of generalized people, which I've always pushed back against, because I believe individuals are individuals, but it's hard though, because when you hear something, you're not saying, okay, well that section has 4 people that are booing me, this section has 8 people. He's just hearing boos. So again, I understand both sides of it, but they're the ones that put themselves in the position to be on social media, to be in front of people. And it kind of that's why I say media training and kind of athletic training, as much as is possible within the human construct, I think they need to have a thicker skin on that sort of thing. And he doesn't brush things off. It's us against him all the time. And that's I guess my issue with him. But speaking of conflict, Gooners versus Cancer is about the biggest conflict that you could possibly have, because we are Gooners and we don't like Cancer very much. And as such, we are doing fundraising on the 2nd of September at Ridley Road Social Club in E8. It is a suburb of Hackney that, for the life of me, every time we talk about this on a podcast, I could not remember the actual stop. The chat always helps me out on this, but it's in Hackney, and a lot of people that are in the chat already. Lynn's going, Mark's going, Bobby Chakrabooti is going. I'm very excited about this, but we got to start filling up these seats. So go to gvclive.com, and there's all sorts of information about who's going to be on the show. It's going to be me for what that's worth. It's going to be Sophie FK from the latte firm, and Tom Canton, or as Sophie calls him, Tom Cantone. And we're going to have a few more people. We're working out some final details about some additional guests. Ruth Beck will be there with some art to give away, which is amazing. And it'll be a fun time. Tickets are £20, which goes directly into Gooners versus Cancer. We don't keep a penny of it. And it also gets you a free raffle ticket for the grand prize of that night, which will be one winner in attendance at the end of the podcast. Will be winning a Arsenal signed shirt from last year, signed by about 10 to 12 of the first team players from last year, which we have thanks to one of our viewers, Charn, who will also be in attendance there. So it'd be kind of weird if he won it, because he donated it. There's a capacity, I think, of about 100. So we've got like 93 tickets still available.
Yeah, baby.
But the hardcore promotion is starting this week, and it'll be a nice full house. My wife will be there, so you can kind of see for yourself how much I'm punching, and come on, and let's see you.
Are you ending the pod?
We'll
That's
see you. Are any of the three of you coming over?
Mike's done, so we can just end the pod now.
Yeah, I'm confused. Are you ending the pod right now, Mike?
No. I just thought that we were talking about.
All right, well, see you guys.
I hate Cancer. So now I'm trying to do it when we have the peak of our viewership, because when people start getting tired of hearing us, then that's not the time to do the thing.
This was
sorry.
The restroom.
This is Casa de Pepe right now.
This was a restroom break. Oh, also, I've been told that this is around the good time for me to say, make sure you like the video and subscribe. There you go. We're going to get that out of the way instead of doing it.
This is the shirt, by the way. This is the shirt.
That is a lovely
being bid
on. Jared, alluding back to something that Andy mentioned a little bit earlier in the podcast, was bringing up Ben White. And it's just something that came up in the documentary is his family is not a footballing family. He didn't grow up liking the game very much, never watched it. I remember when he first signed with us, they asked him about, it was a Patrick Vieira or another defender of ours, and he just pretty much said, yeah, I know nothing about them. I never watched football. It was not my thing. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, Jared, do you care? Do you care at all?
I don't mean who cares about this topic. I hope you didn't take that personally.
I just deleted all my notes. Fuck it. No, who cares about? No, I'm just kidding.
No, Mike and I are in agreement. I don't care at all if he doesn't come from a family that watches football and he doesn't watch it in his spare time. Like, if he's not watching Brentford versus United this weekend, I couldn't care less about anything in the world. I don't want to watch it either. And my only job is to be a fan. His job is to actually play the game. But he made another kind of point when in his little segment, which I thought was good, is he said, I was never an outstanding talent, like the standout star. I just worked way harder than everybody else. So if I've got a guy that's so committed to outwork all of his peers to make it to that level, I do not care if he likes to watch football in his off time. Our podcast yesterday, Mike and I were both talking about, we don't want to talk about insurance in our time off. It sounds terrible. We do it for work. I don't want to do it in my free time.
I'm not from an insurance family, I'm not from an insurance family. My dad was a podiatrist, and yet I'm incredible at it. So that's all I care about for Ben White. Yeah, I mean it's so stupid this whole night. People just want to pick on people, and so oh my God, he doesn't watch 168 hours of football minus the time he's on the pitch. My God.
And watching film with the team and practicing, like he probably spends 60 hours a week on football as is. Like, how can you blame him for not wanting to turn it on TV when he goes home?
You think
It's weird.
Yeah,
it's strange, but it's it doesn't like make him less of a player.
Yeah, I always relate the Ben White criticism back to the Mustafi love, back to the Arteta hate. I think it's all intertwined because
what Mustafi
Saliba,
love?
the Mustafi, yeah. It's a good thing he never watched football because he doesn't know who Mustafi is. He never seen him play, so he saved himself that effort. But no, but just you don't like Arteta. You buy this superstar player. That superstar player gets loaned out, and you purchase another defender. So now that defender, Ben White, is the defender that Arteta wanted over Saliba last season. So he's who the one I don't like, and I got to praise Saliba no matter what. And I'm not disregarding Saliba's talent because he was absolutely epic. He played brilliantly versus Crystal Palace, and he's a major talent. But I think that thought process is still lingering that I'm team Arteta out / Saliba, so I can't possibly rate Ben White. So it's kind of just a stick that they use to beat them in a way. But moving to the final points here, Andy, here's another one of who cares that Mikey might say. The motivating the team with tweets. Like Arteta's well aware that the players are all young, they're all on social media. They might feel I'm not the ramifications, but they might see that and witness that way more than Arteta as far as Twitter goes. And a younger generation does take these type of things a little bit more to heart, if you will. So, I mean, fair game on Arteta's behalf to use social media and point these type of things out.
Yeah, why not? I mean, he drew a fucking picture of a heart and a brain holding hands. I think anything that links the players to his emotions, right? So that really upset him. He kept that in his vault, and before the game, he just said, "Guys, I was really fucking pissed off with this," And I think that shows the players like, "Hey, they know how passionate it is, but he's just showing the players like I'm connecting these dots that we have to go out there and right this wrong." How many times do we love as fans to give who's that idiot on Talk Sport? Whenever Arsenal lose, he's the first one. When we win, we're the first people to tell him like, this is Arteta turning around to Ivan Toney being like, go fuck yourself, this pissed us off. So, yeah, does it matter? No. But I think Arteta has great ways of sequencing, hey, this is how we're going to motivate the team.
Yeah, and it's not they're unique. I mean, what we've seen, and again, I hate to have to keep saying this, but we know it's tailored and edited and so on. But he's not doing the same thing before every game. There's been some, where he's had a soft touch, some where he's had a very hardcore touch. I don't think I love the fact that he uses what do they call it? I mean, this is common in American sports. When someone says something in the media, you put it up on what is it called, like the poster board or the
like
bulletin board or
bulletin board material. Yeah.
I mean, you use the players' comments, whether it's I think he even made a comment at one point about he was going to talk about what the Wolves players said about us dancing like we had won the Premier League, but then Ukraine and Russia happened. So he would have used that tactic there, and he even said he was going to use it, but then there are bigger things going on in the world. So I'm all for that. I mean, that would motivate me, unless I was like super close with Ivan Toney on the side. But that would be motivational to me. And as long as you don't dip into the same tactic too often and become predictable and lose the gravitas of what you're trying to do, that's proper man management, in my opinion.
Third game. Daniel Robert with the comment about what is more important for the Gooners, the journey or the destination. I don't know if you guys interpreted this the same way as as
Yeah,
I
there's
did.
a whole
but
controversy about this too now.
well, look, this is what I found funny, and maybe it's just me, but like, that's like, hey, Mike, what's more important, option A or B? You're like, B. I'm like, no, C. Just because he said the journey destination.
The company.
Laka tried his best. Like, fuck it, I'm gonna go with the destination. He's like, no, bitch, the company. Like, well, that wasn't even an option. What the fuck?
Yeah, how dare you?
Dude, I found that was so hilarious for some reason.
That is pretty funny. I was thinking more of the controversy about how people are getting up in arms about him essentially singling Laka out to ask about this in the direct wake of Aubameyang being banished. His closest friend, and it was seemingly kind of a very directed question about that to him. But what is the right answer to that?
Well, I think it's open to interpretation. Like, what's the
journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yeah, like what's the destination? Is the destination the Champions League final? Is it lifting a trophy? Like, it's all up into interpretation, right? Like,
I think that's the understood kind of that the destination is reaching your goals, whatever that may be.
Right. So then it's all about like. It's the interpretation of the player, and we don't know that he didn't go around and ask every player in the room. They're not going to show that on All or Nothing. He went to his captain first, asked him, and then maybe he went around. So it's just like, why can't Arsenal fans just watch something and not have to have a fucking conspiracy theory behind it? I know
because we need to know
we
need to know whether it's a rabbit or a duck. That's why, Andy. We need to get to the bottom of this.
All I saw was the duck, and it took me a long time to see the rabbit. Now all I can see is the rabbit.
Yeah. When Arteta said there was a rabbit there, I'm like, hold on, you're stupid. There's nothing there. Hold on. I'm like, oh, there it is, son of a bitch. So we're gonna
or whatever it sounds like when he says it.
Yeah, fucking fuck. Okay, so
I just like how he pulled that up so quickly. He drew the heart and the brain and the guy holding up the scarf really quickly. Like, I think Arteta might be part magician because he's just pulling all this shit just out of nowhere.
He pulled a rabbit and a duck out of the hat.
Yeah.
He certainly loves a visual aid. We know that for sure.
Well, he wears maybe he wears a magic hat.
So I got one more question for you, gentlemen, just talking about the documentary, and then we're going to move on to a few user questions. I see that we already have like a few, like 6 or 7 starred. We'll go by that. But Jared, just on a personal level, Jared, we lived through those games. Watching the highlights of that Manchester City and the Liverpool game, it was a fucking gut check for me. Like I did not I knew everything that happened, and I still I don't even want to watch the last 2 episodes. Like,
I'm with you. The Manchester City one, especially, that's probably the most upset I've been the way a game in a long, long time, because for 70 minutes of that game, we went out there, and for that period of time, we were the superior team on that day, and to not get anything out of it was, devastating to us as fans. So you have to imagine the impact it had on the team was, tenfold to what it is all of us just sitting at home on our couches watching it, because they really did everything they needed to do to come away with something, and to have it just not work out had to be devastating. And I hated watching that back. That was the one for me that I didn't want to see again.
But when you sprinkle in, I mean, I didn't know Arteta spoke to them as though he was there before the game, and I didn't know he gave the halftime talk and the post-game talk from that screen, which, I mean, that was interesting. I mean, you'd like to think that he was as involved as possible, which looks like he was, but, the way he handled that was appropriate, I think. I mean, again, it made him look good. What hasn't made him look good so far in this? But I mean, so yeah, watching the game highlights, it's a little nauseating. But I liked how they kind of filled it in with the before and the after, which is why I'm not completely not looking forward to the last 2 episodes, because I mean, I know that we shit the bed against Tottenham. We got really kind of not robbed, but like screwed on every possible thing. And then we shit the bed on our own accord against Newcastle. I would like to see how it was handled before.
Do you
during,
guys
and after.
follow
It
Formula
was Stu
One?
McFarlane again versus Spurs.
Do you guys watch Formula One?
Yes.
No.
Do you watch the series on Netflix?
Yep.
So I started following Formula One when Lewis was a rookie. And even though going into that Drive to Survive documentary, I knew Lewis totally got fucked, it was more or less oh, Jared, I love LA.
I don't even know what that just was.
I'm so lost right now.
I've understood Troops more clearly than what that was.
It's clear based off of Jared's look that he will blow Max to the max.
I'm actually not a Verstappen fan at all.
Jokes aside, going into that, knowing kind of what happened in that final race, it was more the behind the scenes that I cared about, right? And like in that particular moment, like hearing all those drivers be like, well, how is this fair? What the fuck? Right? You hear all 20 on the grid reacting to a really shitty situation. That's what I'm looking forward to these last 2 episodes is we all know we shit the bed. But there's obviously a narrative with this documentary for Arsenal fans. If you're a neutral, you're just watching this for entertainment. But for all of us, we're seeing the behind the scenes of like, hey, great, we were on the cusp of Champions League football, but clearly there's 6 or 7 gentlemen at the club where that wasn't even in their thought process. And we saw that in January, as all the fans would have, we would have been like, splash the cash, we're in touching distance, but they were stay the course. Like, we'll ride this out and we'll see what happens. And that's what I'm kind of interested in. And we also kind of have the beauty of watching this documentary with hindsight of what happens 3 months after with Jesus and Zinchenko and some of these other signings where it's like, hey, sure. Europa League didn't stop us from nabbing some world-class athletes. So I'm kind of interested more like hers. I know I'm going to be on your page. I'm going to be pissed off and furious. But I'm also interested to see how Arteta handles it, how Edu handles it, and frankly, how the players do too.
Yeah, that's a
I want
really
to see how
point.
Pablo Mari handled it.
Yeah,
from Udinese, from the show. I just remembered that he was on loan last year.
That's a really good point, Andy, because after the Manchester City game, the team talk wasn't like I thought there was going to be more anger, but like you said, Arteta came out said we were the best team from here to here. We didn't finish our chances. That's how you finish off these big teams. And so, yeah, that's a good point as far as the how the players and the managers going to react to this. So we are going to deep dive into the user questions. Mikey, I'm going to start them off. We're going to do a quick little rapid fire for all 3 of you guys. If we do
and quite a good job of hosting today, by the way. I have to say,
I appreciate that.
It's almost like you host a podcast.
Yeah, it's as if he has another pod. Hey, and can we talk about other pods for a second?
As if he's importing his experience from a different.
But it's not. I'll tell you what, it's not another Arsenal podcast. So.
Here I am this afternoon, just working away, and I'm like, oh, I see Canton's little notification and I see that fucking whore, that podcast whore, Jared, on there, and I think to myself. Now, did he give us like a, hey, we're going to be on live later? Sure, right? But not on Canton's pod, dude.
Shouted out the open mic tomorrow after the game. Shouted out the live event that he's going to be a part of.
Well, he shouted that out. But guys, I'm declaring it now. We're going to war with TGT.
Yeah, way to do that 2 weeks to the day before his wedding that I'm going to be attending.
or not.
Well,
maybe
actually,
you might not be.
Let's leave it for 2 weeks.
Can he block you from the wedding list?
No, not at this point. But Mike is going to go to war after that during that wedding. So I won't declare it now. Let's wait for Mike to do it in person.
Boys and girls, question number 1.
I hope to get some seriously good content from that wedding.
Hey, question, Mike. Are you taking the wifey to the wedding?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Steph is coming with me to the wedding. To the
that was probably a condition of him getting invited is that she had to be there to chaperone.
Yeah, like Tom told her, he could come, but you have to look over him.
Guys, I didn't want to say this.
If you've met Steph, though, believe me, I'm not the one that has to be looked after at an event with an open bar.
Hey, Mike, next comment highlighted for you.
Yes, I saw that. Yes, I will be entering and leaving Georgia multiple times throughout.
Oh God.
Jared?
Canton did ask me. He's like,
Oh,
"Hey,
shit.
do you think Mike will notice if it's non-alcoholic everything?" Because I can't have him ruin the day.
No, Steph. I'm really excited for this because Steph will be with me for the wedding. She'll be with me for the Fulham game with all the normal crew. She'll be with me we're going to the ABBA Avatar experience. This was my compromise for her. It's something by where West Ham plays. It's at the Olympic Stadium. There's like a indoor ABBA concert that's just like holograms and stuff. Don't ask. And then she'll be with me
Sounds
for
like
the.
something Andy would be going to be
No,
honest.
Seriously, you went to Backstreet Boys and your
I had
car is awful.
my fucking family love ABBA, and when I got married, I had it in our contract that if any ABBA got played, because I hate that band, I got to destroy the DJ's laptop, and so it was in
I
the
thought
contract.
you meant throughout the course of your marriage,
No,
every time ABBA
no.
got played, you'd have like a free run at somebody
I
else.
cannot stand
When she's
that
mad,
word.
it's her ringtone.
Oh, Steph loves Mamma Mia. I mean, Steph and Allie are they love Mamma Mia, and watching the two of them like in these rare moments where Allie's home from school and there's 4 bottles of red wine empty on the counter and they're just
Merlot Mike.
It's hilarious.
Merlot Mike. I'm gonna have to Google search what Mamma Mia and ABBA is. By the way, I have zero clue what you people are talking about right now.
You're too young and you have too many penises.
Fair enough.
We'll be going to the wedding. We'll be going to the Gooners versus Cancer event. She'll be coming to Villa with me. She's going to Manchester away with me. It's going to be fun. She's just tagging along while I do all the things that I normally do.
Yeah. So she's basically.
And then we're going to ABBA. And we're going to Amsterdam. So that was something that she wanted to do as well.
So basically, because I know Mike now. I've known him for 13 years. Mike is going to walk into this ABBA exhibit.
You've ghosted him for 10 of those years.
Be in there for 20 minutes, absolutely have a hissy fit. He's not having fun, and he's going to storm out with Steph, and then he's going to be like, "Okay, we got to jump on the train to go up to Manchester for a match."
No, I'm going to enjoy that, and yes, before anyone has to ask, I will be wearing a diaper.
Thank you for knocking out that question.
Because I don't. Oh, was that one of our questions?
Look, damn sake. Do you need to wear a nappy for this journey?
I'm telling you, man. It's just don't overuse one. I mean, you have to change them every once in a while, but yeah, it was enlightening. 27 hours.
Okay,
So.
We have been waffling for the last 10 minutes that I'm actually able to podcast. So what I'm going to do right now is give myself an outro, and I will let Mikey take over.
I gotta leave soon too. So
you guys said an hour and a half. It's only been an hour 17.
You didn't fucking say an hour and a half. That never came up.
I said I have a hard stop at 3 p.m. UK. I believe.
Okay, so that's 9 minutes from now.
All right.
Yeah.
So we got 9 minutes. Let's wrap this shit up.
Let's go for it. Question number 1, Jared.
Forbade Mike to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll call off sick from work right now for you guys. Don't worry. Cue for the panel for Jared in this instance. Now that you've seen All or Nothing, was it good is a good thing that Alba turned up at Barcelona?
Yeah. So since you got a hard stop, we'll go through these quickly. Yeah, I think it ended up being a really good thing for Arsenal. It sort of, he did it to kind of press our hand, but in a lot of ways, I think it pressed their hand, and we ended up getting kind of the best case scenario for us, and that we got him out the door, and we're not paying anything for him this season. So it was all good.
Love it. Mikey, 2 goals for Marquinhos in the U21 versus West Ham. Do you think he's headed towards the first team as backup as Saga? Can he replicate what Martinelli did?
Yeah, well, what Martinelli did, and frankly, kind of what, maybe not exactly the same way, what Guendouzi did in his first year, where he seemed to, you assumed we were buying him for the youth team, and then he just played so well they couldn't keep him out of the first team until he turned into an asshole. I don't know. I mean, we'll know in 2 weeks whether we sign somebody, and if we don't, I'm sure he'll be in the traveling squad in the first team. I would rather that not be the case. I want him to have a year to not have to be in that position, because you can set somebody up to fail by putting them in there too early. Marquinhos is super young, man.
Super young. I do believe if they sign a winger, I feel like it's almost obligated to loan him out, because he'd be wasted. here. Andy, would you have Arteta as a partner in Pictionary?
Someone just take a picture. There was like a noise a second ago that sounded like someone was taking a picture. It's not. All right, never mind.
I didn't hear anything. No, yeah, dude. You kidding me? You play Pictionary with both his passion and his ability with a pen in a very short amount of time. You're winning you're undefeated.
Or he'll give you the hairdryer. Freaking thing if you don't. Coming at you, Jared. Talk to me.
Do we know if he drew the duck rabbit?
Oh, he didn't draw that.
No, that's been around for
That's
years.
Yeah, he popped he was in the middle of a conversation, popped his iPad up, and like, oh, here's the duck rabbit.
Wow.
Do people think that he actually drew that?
No, I'm kidding.
No.
I'm just saying he's incredible at art.
That would be if he did that though. Like if he just said, "Give me a second," just started sketching, I would have laughed. That would have been fucking brilliant. Jared, what has surprised you the most on All or Nothing about Arsenal?
I guess so far, maybe some of the players we haven't heard much from, which maybe they'll be a big part of the last 2 episodes, but especially, I don't know when this was all finalized and the final editing was done, but kind of knowing that Martin Odegaard was likely going to take over the captaincy, I'm a little surprised we haven't seen more of him or heard more from him. But that said, maybe these last 2 episodes, it'll focus on him a little bit more, but that's kind of the main thing I noticed watching him the first time through.
Was that question from 312 Gooner or 312 Gooner?
The first one was from 312 Gooner, and this
Andy.
one is from 312 Gooner. 2 completely different people. For Mikey, did you feel better, worse, or no different about the Alba situation after watching episode 4, 5, and 6?
I feel better that we are out of the Alba business. I mean, I already felt pretty good about that, but I feel even better now.
As I think Garlic said, it was the beginning of the process, so and a very important process. So for those of you that wants to know all the finances, there's a podcast called Mike Shows You the Money, and Mikey will explain to you how beneficial some of those terminations were. Andy from Lim Simpson.
This is an hour of me going like this.
Yeah. For me, I took that I had to be. Oh, sorry. It was more a comment actually, but it was revolving the journey. So I know. Amateur hour. I'm so sorry. How many times
yell at me so much because he used to like back when we first started this, we legit like almost scripted it, and it would be like red would be Mike talking, blue would be Andy.
Oh wow.
And it was back when people would email us questions. And he knew that I never looked at what he did until like right when we went live. So he would like text me before and be like, dude, read the question because I just did what you did. I'd be like,
well, no, a couple times I'd put something in there where like, you know,
and I'd be like,
I'm a child molester.
and he would start reading it and then be like, oh,
dude, I was basically Ron Burgundy. I would just read what was in front of me.
He did that thing. I think Unai, like, it was Unai or another Spanish coach gave a player like a USB for homework. And he came back and the guy was like, did you do the homework? And the player's like, yeah, I did the homework. And Unai was like, there's nothing in the USB. It was empty. That's Mike. Mike's like, Andy, did you read the questions? I read the questions. I didn't send you anything. Fuck. Another question about, hey, dude, Andy, you are the guy with Arteta questions about drawing. How many times do you think Arteta practices his drawings ahead of time? And why is it more than 10?
Well, I think his wife told us he's in that office for 3 hours a day. So clearly he's doing something in there, and it's, you know, not all tactics. So, you know, he's got to be just, well, that. So 30 seconds there. So, yeah.
I could tell that some of these questions were started by Mike, by the way. Just there's a lot of picture questions going on over here. Last question that we had from our live chat. Thank you so much. User questions. Are we still calling them user questions, Mikey?
Of course we're still calling them. We made that up. We can't let Tom Canton just take that over without
hashtag user questions.
Yeah.
Jared, do you think that we will hear about that this contract extension in the next couple of episodes?
That's one I hadn't really thought about. I'm inclined to say probably not much. I think it'll get mentioned and maybe be like a 2-minute segment, but I don't think it'll be a real lengthy piece of the next couple. I think it'll just kind of get mentioned that it happened and they'll move on.
Okay. Lovely stuff. Mike, we are finishing up at a perfect timing. Would you like to give us the outro, sir?
Absolutely. Mike, first of all, another great, not another Arsenal podcast on Monday night. Well done. I was able to watch most of it. And the debut of John from Virginia was good. I've met John. I know that he's a good talker and he knows his stuff. And it was nice to see that translate to the small screen or whatever we call this. So good job there. Go to Not Another Arsenal podcast to watch that. You can see Jared on his podcast called the Gooner Talk TV. It's on various times throughout the day, and Andy is seemingly falling back in love with football and podcasting.
You'll love to see it.
And leaving.
He's got blackmail on me, guys.
I do. He's in hard this season. So we will be on an hour after the final whistle tomorrow. So that will be 6:00 p.m. UK time, 1:00 p.m. Eastern time. Open mic. I want to see as many of you guys as possible, please. It'll be gooneropenmic.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me. So I'm not just sitting here by myself, and because that sucks. I have nothing to say. And I hope that we win. Final prediction for tomorrow. I'm going 3-1. Mikey?
3-0.
Jared?
3-0.
Andy?
2-all.
Son of a...
Negative
Well, on that note, we are out of here.